All right, now on the podcast, we are doing something that I have been wanting to do for a long, long, long time. And that is if I could just find a reason to have my good friend David Hale on the show. I just need one. I
Yeah.
wanted to do it. David Hale, of course, you know Dave from his fame, probably on Inside Access on
Oh, many,
ESPN on the
many,
ACC network. Yeah,
dozens of people tuning
dozens of
in.
people watch. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Particularly
covers
in the
the
fine state of
ACC.
Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. Covers the
Prime
ACC
ACC
like nobody.
country.
There is no bit of the ACC rock that has not been turned over, and you and Andrea Adelson do a great job on that show. But probably you might have seen Dave, who recently spent 24 hours at a Buc-ee's because he lost a bet.
That's also true. I'm not sure which is like a better item on my resume, my like my LinkedIn profile. I do know when I die which one will be mentioned first in my obituary, and it is definitively the 24 hours at Bucky's. By the way,
Probably
do
just
you
because
think?
they're trying to link it to why you died. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I mean,
well, there
it's
is a
just
lot of
scientific.
overlap on that Venn diagram. Yes. Do you think people are truly appreciative and excited enough that they have two of the three greatest journalists ever to come through Albany, Georgia, on one podcast right now?
I mean, people have been. I'm sure all of Albany is tuning in right now, and that's. I don't know. I don't know
Uh,
if the internet still exists there or not,
yeah.
but
Hey, hey,
yeah,
hey to the folks at Charlie B's.
yeah. Charlie B's. So Dave and I know each other. We know each other from Albany, Georgia. We at one point sort of covered UGA football together. I kind of would
Hmm.
come up and live on your couch for two
Hmm.
days.
Yeah.
Back in it was really.
I
I
had to I
remember
had to
one time.
fumigate that couch afterwards,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So we go. That was God. That was when Matthew Stafford was in college, and he's now
Yeah.
like the oldest man in the NFL. So that
Yeah.
speaks to us a little bit,
I
I guess.
find it's best not to do the math on that. Like,
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, that was like 5 years ago. Everything that
yeah.
happened before like 2 days ago was 5 years ago. There's only
We
two times.
predated Geno Atkins. I mean, it was like this is he's up for the Hall of Fame soon. So anyway, I don't want to keep making ourselves feel older. We
Yeah.
once saw a man in red pants carry a pizza like a book down the
Yeah.
street, and
Hmm.
which is a very of all the memories I have of that year of covering the number one team in the country, and they played all kinds of big games, and man, there were just stars galore on that team. I mostly remember the guy in red pants carrying a pizza like a book and thinking that's unorthodox.
I remember almost nothing of that year whatsoever for various reasons. So,
Well,
yeah.
I do. The reason I was waiting for the Bengals to have an ACC connection that we could touch on to give us a real reason to come in, to justify us coming on here and just doing jokes and catching up. You have one. I mean,
Huh.
Barrett Carter
Yeah.
from Clemson, the Bengals' fourth round pick, was really, I mean, captain, leader, all of the things when you talk about Clemson. Give me your experiences and how you kind of got to know Barrett Carter over the years and your impression of his time at Clemson.
I'm a big Barrett Carter fan. I think Bengals fans probably will be as they get to know him too. Like he was a very prized recruit, like 5-star guy coming in. And he really like he kind of came in sort of a little bit big for a safety, a little bit small for a linebacker, was a little bit of a tweener that sort of has put on some weight to get to be more of an established linebacker, but he does it all really well. He can rush off the edge. You can drop him into coverage. He does everything pretty well. Um, I got to know him though because he in high school started doing this and kept doing it in at Clemson. Would just go to schools and read to school children, and he
Huh.
didn't tell Clemson about this. Like he was just doing it on his own, and then kind of word seeped out. So I was like, well, let me go hang out with him. And he was great hanging out with the kids. I mean, it was like the time that you could see Mr. T at the mall. Like you just get very excited about it. But he was great. And then like he's super tight with his mom. Like I remember I rode back with him after reading to kids, and he's like on the phone with his mom explaining to her like the book that he read. And he's just a very down to earth, fun, pleasant, smart human being. I think if you ask Clemson fans, like, did he maximize his ability at Clemson? They would probably say no, which is why he's a fourth round pick. I mean, I think if you go back 2 years, most people probably projected him as a first rounder. So that's probably good news for the Bengals. Why did he not maximize his potential? To me, this is as much on Clemson as it is on him, and perhaps more so. One, he was recruited by Brent Venables, who is one of probably the 2 or 3 best defensive coordinators in the history of defensive coordinators. Um, but he played for Wes Goodwin, who just got fired as Clemson's defensive coordinator. And part of it, I don't think he was really coached up enough. He wasn't put in a huge position for success. But the other thing of it is too that what Clemson did defensively really evolved a lot over the course of his time in Clemson, particularly up front. Like that used to be Venables was super aggressive with a pass rush. It was a D line driven team, and the linebacker like Venables is an old walk on linebacker at K State. Like he wants big mean linebackers, and that just all kind of changed. They got softer, frankly. And the defensive front just was not as aggressive, which put a lot more pressure on the linebacking crew. To me, I think he has a lot of untapped potential there. So if you assume the coaching gets better at the NFL level, I think that's great for him. I think there is a lot left to plumb there. Now, I think there's going to be obviously a lot less patience at the NFL level for him to develop that quickly. So, but he is a really smart guy. It would not shock me at all if he blossoms into a legitimate starter, and maybe more than that down the road.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals seem to have the same vision that you talked about, that this guy feels like he had all the potential. It just needs to be unlocked properly. And that, because in pre-draft, I remember listening to linebacker stuff, and there was talk of like, what happened to Barrett Carter? Like people remembering being so high on him. And if it's the idea, you have to assume that this was a Bengals resolution to the Barrett Carter issue, was that, look, we think it was more Clemson than it was anything else. Then that certainly they could really have a steal here. But at the very least, the floor on Carter seems to be like a good dude who's going to give you absolutely everything. He's going to be a team guy. He was a captain. He was all those things you want to have at Clemson. And at the very least, he's rotational and a special teamer.
Right.
I mean, that's
He'll
not a
kill on
bad
special
pick in the fourth
teams.
round.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he'll be an absolute asset on special teams. I think you'll be able to use him. And like again, he is smart enough to pick up on a playbook and insert and play certainly in a few packages right away. But his versatility is probably his best asset. And so I think as he gets more comfortable, and if you see that development happen, as I believe it will, he's one of those people that you can sort of play in a lot of different roles that makes disguising your packages because of personnel a lot easier too, which is another thing that I don't feel like Clemson did enough of with him.
Yeah. There's another guy who's, I always hate talking about UDFAs until they're official, because sometimes they just don't show up, which, people said that about me before. And but
you are
the
UDFA of the Bengals beat, I would imagine.
Right, yeah. But so it's Jordan Moore from Duke. What's his background on the assumption that he's going to show up here and kind of enter the mix at receiver for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, look, he was really productive for Duke. He came in as a quarterback in, I think, the same class as Riley Leonard, under David Cutcliffe, and Cut was the coach there, and competed for the QB job 3 years ago in spring and lost out to Riley Leonard. And they said, well, you're a really, really good athlete. We want to try receiver. Sure, he goes over receiver. He was instantly an impact guy at receiver. He has a lot of athleticism, a lot of speed, pretty good hands, decent route runner. He's not a huge dude. He's not the most physical receiver, which is why you see him as an undrafted free agent. But you go back and look at some of the Duke receivers that have come through. I always think back on Jamison Crowder, who I think was like a 5th or a 6th round guy, and he's been in the league for 15 years now or something like that. Like they're very productive, and they don't get a lot of attention. Moore fits into that category, but he is really, like, he's a unique athlete. So if you find a role for him and he can make the team, I see some upside there. It's probably a good bit more of a long shot, certainly, than Barrett Carter is. But I don't think, again, you don't get into Duke without being pretty smart. You don't make that transition from QB to receiver as easily as he did without being pretty smart and versatile and athletic. So I think there's some upside there.
All right. That's good. I'm glad we covered the important things. I have to ask you about Buc-ee's.
Yeah, no, let's get to the good stuff.
First of all, for the people that are just tuning in now, okay, how did this happen? How did it come to be that you spent 24 hours in a Buc-ee's?
Well, it all starts the same way as most stories do. I'm an idiot. And My colleague Andrea Adelson and I, we have an annual wager on. We make every week we make our picks for every ACC game, just not against the spread, just straight up. This dates back many, many years. And I should preface this by saying there's no reward for winning this. No one cares about who wins. It is strictly about punishing the loser in some way. Now, largely, this has been lower stakes punishments for a while, but we decided we want to have a little fun with it this year. So we turned to what I would say is like the doji of social media, which is my Twitter followers, just the people who really are coming in with good, smart ideas to make my life more efficient. And we said, hey, what should the punishment be? And they gave us a bunch of ideas, and we narrowed it down to four, one of which was spending 24 hours inside of a Buc-ee's, and then put it up for a vote. And that was the runaway winner. So the real problem, or maybe in some ways, I guess the benefit of this, is I was so bad at making picks this year that by like week 6, it was 100% certain that I would be doing this. And so I was slowly plotting out how to make this work for many months, including connecting with the fine folks at Buc-ee's corporate, which my assumption is it's just like one bar in Austin with like a mechanical bull that the CEO rides, and he's like, "Yeah, sell more jerky." But they, at every step along this like 6-month ride, I kept saying, certainly an adult in the room at Buc-ee's, at ESPN, my wife, someone will say, no, you can't do this. And man, everybody was very excited about me doing it. Yeah, you should definitely do this. So anyway, last week, I spent 24 hours inside of the Buc-ee's. Not just any Buc-ee's, though. The Daytona Beach, Florida Buc-ee's, which I fit right in because what I was doing was not particularly abnormal compared to everything else that is happening in Daytona Beach at any given time.
Well, was that handpicked for a specific reason? Did it feel like the mecca of Buc-ee's for you that you had to go there?
I personally would have gone to one in Texas to get more of a like Stetson hat and leather boots vibe. But my colleague Andrea, who won this bet, lives in Orlando, and this was her closest Buc-ee's, and we were going to do our show from there, and she didn't want to be even mildly inconvenienced. But the more I thought about it, this felt like a very Florida man thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it only made sense to do it in Florida, where there are 2 Buc-ee's locations, St. Augustine and Daytona Beach. And St. Augustine just felt a little too classy for me.
Yeah, understandable. I just want to just bring out for you a couple of my favorite moments, because obviously this was a very social media savvy move by you,
Yeah.
and highly entertaining. I appreciated it because at all hours of the day, no matter what I was doing, I could always just check back in and see how low you've gotten. And
it was like the first weekend of March Madness, where you slowly see John Calipari descend into madness. That was exactly how I was.
You were, and it was. I did enjoy the early ones where it's like you're even on television early on. You guys are doing your show there in front of the wall of jerky, which it's quite a wall.
It's quite a wall. Yes.
And then it just like, you looked really good and you put together in TV Dave, and then it was just, someone who I'm familiar with, Late Night Dave, sort of showed up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, now I know. Now I know this. Here's a couple. Let's pull this one up here. Hour 19. I am not well on this side. And I like how you're just hiding behind it. I felt like that kind of was maybe a perfect summation of things. I woke up to that one, I think.
Yeah, I got a little bit of the Ancient Aliens guy hair thing going on there. It was so like the first part of this where we had TV cameras there. There will be, for better or worse, like a full 4-minute long feature that we will run I think next week on ACC Network from this. So I had cameramen with me for a good bit of this, and that went pretty fast because they're just like, hey, go do this dumb thing, go do that dumb thing, and I'm like, okay. And so I go off and do it. But then they leave at 10 p.m. and I've got 9 straight hours of being alone in the Buc-ee's, and that's really where things got dark.
Only just a few brief submissions that would show up. Here's another one. I enjoyed this. Sports Center hit this morning. Clearly a high watermark in my journalism career. I mean, between is that the poncho? Is that a Buc-ee's poncho?
That is a snuggie. A snuggie,
Okay.
if you will. And I got to be honest with you, quite comfy. Now, I also wore at one point the full zip up beaver onesie with the hood that has the beaver tooth that come over the top. Now, that was less comfortable, got very hot, and I'm going to assume should not be worn near an open flame at any point.
I enjoyed this. I just feel like the fact that this was on morning television is fantastic.
The good thing on that hit, I was on SportsCenter. They did not ask me anything but Buc-ee's questions. Then I went and did another show after that, and they were like, well, let's talk about Bill Belichick. And I'm donned out in full beaver regalia. And I'm like, this really does sort of sum things up for me pretty well here. And Bill Belichick, frankly.
And would anyone at this point have been surprised if Bill Belichick was sitting next to you also in a Buc-ee snuggly with Jordan off to the side? Like, no, you can't talk about the wall of jerky.
That's right. That's exactly.
So this one, 24 hours in a Buc-ee's, hour number 15, 1 a.m. It's 10 a.m. somewhere is the quote from Jimmy Buffett if he lost a bet and had to spend 24 hours in a Buc-ee's. Love that line. One of my favorites there. How often did you spend most of the hour just coming up with what you were going to put on the next sign?
No, it came to me very organically. There was look, I am not Paul. I think I am not. I will not. The conclave getting together will not be considering me for Pope. I am not a strongly, deeply faithful man. But there was something mystical in the air at this Buc-ee's, where the ideas they came to me, and so here's the thing that really was weird. My takeaway from all of this, if you want to sum it all up, they play some very terrible country music all throughout the day. There, just constant stream of bad country music. But most of the day, you don't really hear it because there's this constant din within Buc-ee's because it's very, very busy there until you get to like the overnight hours in which there's only like 10 people in there at any given time. And so you really start to hear and listen to the lyrics of these terrible country music songs. And the more I'm listening to them, I'm like, God, this really feels like it sums up what's happening to me right now. It was like that Chappelle Show skit where it's like the Tupac song that is about what he's doing right now that proves that Tupac is alive. Like it felt like these country music singers were writing these songs while watching me in the Buc-ee's. And, it's sort of like, oh, life's really gotten bad. Now you're wearing a Snuggie in a grocery store. It was too on the nose. And so I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking like I'm definitely losing it now. Like this is the point in which my conscious brain has separated from reality. So then our camera folks come back in at like 7 something in the morning to film the end of this 24-hour journey, and the camera guy is like hooking up my microphone and stuff, and he's like, "Man, you hear this music? Sounds a lot like what you're going through right now." And I'm like, yes. Buc-ee sees into me. So I'm telling you, there was a higher power, a higher beaver power above all of this that was overseeing the entire event.
A higher beaver power. You guys are having a 4-minute special on it or whatever. I think that's going to be the title of it, A Higher Beaver Power. I feel like that sounds.
That was also the name of your third album, which did not sell very well.
Did not sell very well. Yeah, no, it was more of a think piece.
Experimental jazz was not in your wheelhouse, is what I look back on it now.
No, it was me and Andre 3000 playing a flute together. I want to wrap this up with my favorite moment from all of this, and then I'll let you go. And that was when this happened. It was the little dancing Buc-ee, and I'm thinking, oh, that's cute. It's 4 a.m. Here's a little dancing Buc-ee, and then it turns into this. I'm like, oh, he's gone really dark.
I was wearing really a cowboy hat. Yeah, that is the only time in my entire life I've worn a hat like that. But
and danced, and you were singing Willie Nelson. I want to thank you for doing that because I enjoyed it, and I think everybody else probably did too. Recounting it has made my day.
I look forward to like when my kids are older and will fully appreciate what a complete moron their father is. Like losing all credibility. Just as I'm like, no, you cannot date that boy on the motorcycle. It's gonna be like, well, you spent 24 hours in the Buc-ee's. Well, you got me there. All right,
Well,
have
you got
fun.
me on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Dave, awesome catching up with you. Great chatting. Congratulations on survival to this point. Again,
Is
we'll
that
still
Buc-ee's
see.
related or just in general that we are both still alive is
I
kind of
think, yeah,
surprising.
there were a lot
Yeah,
of people betting
yeah,
against it.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
someone's losing a bet right now just by us sitting here talking. There's no
I
question.
hope they didn't wager 24 hours at a Buc-ee's.
Dave, appreciate it, man. We will. I'll talk to you soon.
Good to see you, man.